My name is Eva Ramirez, and I am originally Spanish, but I work in Norway now at the Norwegian Institute for Water Research in Oslo. I'm a deep sea biologist, and I mostly work with biodiversity and reproduction of deep sea animals.
I know that you're involved in DOSI project. Can you talk a little about DOSI role in this research in deep sea?
Yes, so DOSI is a Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative. So the idea of the program is to bring together people from different sectors, so scientists, but also lawyers, economists, industry, policymakers, to discuss about the issues that are most important now for the oceans.
How easy is it to research in tailing placement?
The research on the position of tailings, so the waste, part of the waste from the mines on land in the sea. There are several projects that are happening now to work on to investigate the environmental impacts of tailing deposition on the sea. There's in Norway, where I come from, we have a very large project that has just started, which is co-funded by industry and the Research Council, and we're looking at exactly these the impacts of mine tailings on the seafloor.
What are these impacts?
There are many of them, but the main ones will be the hypersedimentation, so the tailings cover the seafloor and all the animals in it. And we don't know much about the recovery potential of these areas once the deposition of the tailings stop. You can have problems with chemical toxicity, for example, from either metals that are still on the tailings or from chemicals that are added to the tailings during the processing. An important factor that has not been studied is the size and the shape of the particles of the tailings, because some of them can be really sharp, and then it can have problems for the animals that feed on the sediment or the filter feeder, and also for the recruitment of larvae and the arrival of juveniles, so for the recolonization of the impacted areas. That's just some of them. You can have plume dispersal, you can have upwelling where the tailings are actually brought back to the surface, so there's a lot of different environmental impacts, and we don't know much, and particularly we don't know much on these processes on the deep sea floor.
And what do you think is the main knowledge gap in this type of research?
Particularly on mine tailings?
Yes.
The main knowledge gaps, we've just had a whole workshop to address this, and I don't think there is one main knowledge gap. There are many of them, and there's anything from the benthic communities and the pelagic communities and what is down there and how they live and how they will be impacted by those tailings, to understanding better the hydrodynamics of the system, which are going to have an effect on the tailings when they come out from the pipe and deposit on the seafloor, the ecotoxicology of the chemicals that are on those tailings and how they affect the environment. So I don't think there is one major gap. And we've done a survey, an online survey, sent to all experts from industry, from scientists, from policymakers, to try to identify those gaps. And there is not a single gap that comes up as major thing. There's a list of them, and I think we need to tackle all of them.
And financial support?
There is. For example, the project I mentioned earlier, the NICOS project in Norway, is co-funded by industry and the Research Council. There are other projects that are funded from research, so we can apply for research projects directly. So yeah, so there is funding, but there are not many projects research projects at the moment happening in this. There have been monitoring projects and surveys, but real research projects, there's not many of them. But I think this is going to increase because the interest on doing this deposition of mine tailings, particularly on the deep sea floor, is increasing. So I think this will increase, I hope.
And what do you think is the future for deep sea research?
I hope it's a good future. I think I'm sure many people have told you already that there is still a lot of unknowns in the deep sea, and there's a lot of that we can learn from the deep sea. And with the increase in interest on exploiting the resources in the deep sea, we need to know better what is down there and how these ecosystems work and function and how they're related to the rest of the biosphere, not just the deep sea. So I think there is a lot to do. I think there's a lot of interest. And it's very expensive to do deep sea research, so that's a barrier that has always limited deep sea research. But I think they will continue to carry on, and this symposium is an example. Every time we have this symposium, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.